Hi everybody, welcome to our Facebook Live event. I'm Tammy Turner. I'm the Community Education Manager for Hospice of the Chesapeake, and joining me today is Amy Stapleton. Amy, can you tell a little bit about who you are, what you do here, and your title, that sort of thing?
Sure, Tammy. Thanks so much. My name is Amy Stapleton. I'm the Bereavement Manager here at Hospice of the Chesapeake, Chesapeake Life Center. The Chesapeake Life Center is a program of Hospice of the Chesapeake. We offer bereavement counseling and services to anyone in our community experiencing grief or loss, regardless of their relationship to Hospice of the Chesapeake or the type of loss that they might encounter. Our services include family and individual counseling, as well as grief support groups for specific types of loss, services available to kids and teens and anyone regardless of their age, as well as we offer some specific types of workshops that you're going to hear about today, like Hopeful Holidays.
Okay, great. So many awesome programs that the Chesapeake Life Center offers. So I think what we wanted to talk about and focus on today, especially because it's all looming, are the holidays, and specifically kind of dealing with grief and loss while we're going through this happy season. We're going to take time today to talk about some strategies, some coping mechanisms, just a few, and then we're going to share with you guys some additional resources that we have available through the Chesapeake Life Center later on. That's going to happen in December. So let's talk a little bit about holidays. In and of themselves are stressful, right?
Yeah.
We've got the hustle, the bustle, the family, extended family time, people coming to visit. There's so much stress just in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine when you're experiencing a loss how that must be compounded.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Holidays can be bittersweet for so many reasons, as well as stressful. And when you're grieving, it can just feel like that added weight of the season upon you. Holidays can often be a painful reminder of what's lost, of who's lost, and what will never be the same. So during this time of year, it becomes especially important for people to take time to really pay attention to what they need and communicate that to the people around them. It becomes really important to give yourself permission and space to advocate for maybe changing a tradition that you've done for the last 20 or 30 years, because this year it just doesn't seem right or feel right. And it doesn't mean that you can't go back to that tradition in the future, but this year, particularly after a time of loss, maybe it's not what you need. So that ability to give yourself permission to advocate for yourself and your family in these times is essential. Also with that can be really this feeling of isolation and loneliness, which is often exacerbated by the darker weather.
Right.
So making real intention to connect with others who are supportive of you and your grief becomes essential as well. And that can be found through family or friends or a support group, reaching out to someone perhaps in your church or faith community or in your neighborhood who might just be able to sit with you in your grief.
Yeah, I would think that would be so important for somebody to be able to relate to you and really understand what you're going through. If you all are just joining us, I'm Tammy Turner. I'm the Community Education Manager for Hospice of the Chesapeake, joined today with Amy Stapleton. Amy's with our Chesapeake Life Center. She's the Bereavement Manager. We invite you all to share this video, to like Hospice of the Chesapeake, to post any comments or questions that you might have for Amy. If you're experiencing grief during this holiday season or know someone that might be, want to be able to be a resource here for folks in our community. Talk a little bit, if you could, about new grief versus old grief. So, yeah, and I'll give my own personal example. So this is the first holiday season that we're experiencing without my mom here. So it's a newer grief. While in the past, we've had other family members that have passed away and, have gotten through the holidays without them around and noticed that. But this is a newer, like, it's all the firsts, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed it at Thanksgiving, and now sort of with, we had our family traditions at Thanksgiving. We used to go to my mom's house, and that isn't an option anymore. So I don't know if you can share anything about, like, sort of this new grief versus having a grief that's a little bit older.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question to think about how grief changes. Here at the Chesapeake Life Center, we don't necessarily believe that grief is something to get over or simply something to just get through. Grief is something that becomes a part of us, regardless if the loss were 3 days ago or 3 years ago or even 30 years ago. Grief becomes a part of who we are, and ultimately we grieve because we love. So those memories of grief stay with us regardless of how fresh or how long ago the loss was. I think when the loss is more recent, there can be an added kind of stress or anxiety or pressure of what to do now. Grief, we know, has an impact physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. And so to have to figure out the holidays in the midst of grief can indeed feel overwhelming. I think it's, again, really important to give yourself options and choices. Maybe you start off the day or the holiday thinking, I'm going to do this because mom always did it this way. I'm going to make that recipe the way she always did it, and we're just going to stick to what we've always done. And then you wake up that morning and you realize, I don't have it in me today, and you need a different game plan, and that's okay. Communicating that with your family, especially with your primary family, I think can let everybody kind of off the hook and give people permission to grieve how they need to. Even though the same family member may have lost the exact same person, the relationships with that person are different. And so therefore your grief is going to be different, and what every person needs as they grieve is different. For grief that happened, or a loss rather, that happened a long time ago, that grief does change over time. But perhaps that's honoring that loved one with a new tradition, or an ornament on a tree, or lighting a candle, or incorporating that loss into your family's holidays, passing around pictures of the loved ones that have died in the past, and sharing stories as a family, even with family members who might not have known that person, but carrying on that legacy of love is central.
Yeah, I would think that would be really helpful. And that is such a good point about, how it shifts and how it's different for each of us. And the what I sort of notice is the change of, and you've talked about this too, the waves, right? It seems like as time passes and you have more space between when the actual loss of the person happened and current time, you have, sometimes you're overcome by the waves, right? And then you have that space. If it's a longer period of time, those waves seem to come less frequently and maybe with less magnitude, right? Like it's sort of...
Yeah, the intensity certainly changes. I think though also it can actually be that the longer we are from a loss, a particular time of death, that we tend to miss different things with each milestone in a family, whether it's a new birth or a wedding or a big achievement. Like as a family grows, you're also more aware of who's missing. So that can certainly be a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
And something to acknowledge.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if we're getting any questions in. If you all have any comments or questions, feel free to post them in the comment section. If not, Amy and I are fine to just keep chatting. I know that as a parent, my kids are older, but as a parent, I'm wondering what it would be like if you were experiencing your own personal loss, say you lost your mother, and yet you still have young children at home, and especially during this holiday season, you know, trying to be excited and enthusiastic and not really feeling it.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of suggestions or strategies that could help our viewers with that?
Yeah, you know, that's certainly something that I've experienced myself personally, and something that we often hear from the families we work with here at the Chesapeake Life Center. You know, kids are incredibly in tune to what adults around them are feeling, even though they might not have words for it. I always think that it's valuable to sit with a kid and name what's going on for you, which also therefore gives them permission to name and express their own experiences of grief and what's going on with them. So modeling that it's okay to cry, that, you know, if we're in the middle of hearing a song on the radio that just takes me back to childhood or reminds me of a special person, it's better than not to name that for a kid, so that they're not wondering. And again, it also models and gives them permission to express their own grief however they need to.
Right. Yeah, I would think that would be identifying it like that would be, you know, helping them express their own thoughts and feelings.
And it also may be to, you know, allow them or invite them to have some say in what they want for the holiday, how they want to honor their special person or their loved one. You know, kids grieve differently than adults, and kids still very much grieve, and often that grief for kids is dismissed. And so as adults, for us to ask and include and invite them to think about how they would like to honor their loved one, again, not only gives them permission, but gives them access to their emotions and really supports them in having their own grief experience. A lot of times kids will say to me, I happen to co-facilitate one of our children's groups, and a lot of times kids will have a very specific plan for what they want to do over the holidays, what they do want to do, what they don't want to do. And so rather than make assumptions as adults as to what that might be for those kids, to ask them to see what their ideas are, actually helps the whole family in a shared grief experience.
That's great. That would be really helpful. So my other thing I'm wondering is about different types of loss. So I know there's sudden loss, and then there's loss of, you know, we lose people in different ways. We've expected there's, you know, serious illness, and we've kind of been able to prepare. I don't think we really prepare, but, you know, I have an understanding that our loved one is, you know, about to die, and then we have sudden death where we just aren't anticipating it. Can you touch on, for related to the holidays, do you notice any different types of ways that could help each of those different types of loss? Is there anything specific?
That's a good question. You know, I would say that strategies for navigating loss in the holidays, or really any time, varies by person, not specifically by type of loss. I don't think that there's a hierarchy of loss. So how someone dies, whether it's suddenly or if they've lived a long and full life, it doesn't necessarily define the grief process. But I do think how a person dies and the process around that death can impact the grief process.
Yeah.
So it might very well be that during the holidays, if you've experienced a sudden loss, that your world might feel even more chaotic and unclear, and or if you've experienced the loss of a child, when so much around the holidays is focused on children from commercials to toy catalogs, you know, to be sensitive to what your particular needs are and how to find the support that you need for your type of loss, and to find a community that shares in that with you. We offer several of the specific loss type groups here at the Chesapeake Life Center, groups that specifically deal with suicide loss, substance loss and overdose, as well as child loss. And so there's something empowering and normalizing about being with other people who have experienced a similar type of loss. You know, loss and grief in and of itself is isolating, so there can be a lot learned and shared in a group where you're sitting with people who, you know, they're there for a very similar reason. It's kind of like a club that no one wants to be part of.
Right. That's great that we have those resources. I know we need to wrap up. Our time's just about out. I want to close today with just mentioning the seminar that's coming up on December 8th. So can you just tell everyone a little bit about that and how they can find out more about it?
Sure. So the details of Hopeful Holidays will be posted on our Facebook group. So please be sure to come back and check out our website and Facebook page for those details.
Yeah, I think it's on the event section. If you go in on the Facebook page, you can look under events and it's listed on that.
So it's going to be on Saturday, December 8th from 9:30 to 12:30.
Okay.
We have space for about 50 people.
Great.
You need to register by calling or sending us an email letting us know that you're coming, because we do have limited space. Also, I think that sooner rather than later is better, because we're already about halfway to capacity.
Okay, great.
The day will include time in a larger group and then smaller group breakouts, which are facilitated by trained volunteers as well as counselors.
And it does look like we might have gotten a comment question in. So looking at where we can find support group info, so is there a specific place on the website where folks can find that? Or
Yeah, if you look on the website for Hospice at the Chesapeake, under the Chesapeake Life Center, you will find the program guide, which includes information about all of our support groups. You can also email us at griefinfo@hospicechesapeake.org, or you can call us at 410-987-2129.
And yeah, it's under on the website. If you go and look under the menu, I think it's called Family Support.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you'll see Chesapeake Life Center in a drop down under that. So Hopeful Holidays, again, will be December 8th. You can find more information about it in the events tab on our Facebook page. If you all think of additional questions, we'll do our best to answer them following this video, and we appreciate you tuning in. Again, I'm Tammy Turner, Amy Stapleton, thanks so much.